I've been in the SEO space since 2001. And the way I think about SEO is a little bit different than other people.
Very good.
Because I've always looked at the business as the primary objective. So getting a business to understand the realization of who they are and what they can provide, and understanding where they fit within their industry. Are they a corner shop or a supermarket within their industry? And then looking at your website and listing down initially, well, what problems can I solve? Easiest way to think about the content on your website and get away from the keyword stuffing is, if somebody lands on this page, what do they need to know in order to make a positive decision? Then it's about the call to actions. What do you want them to do next?
On the 6th of August 1991, the very first web page went live. And if you ever heard about the news then, it probably was delivered to you on the pages of a newspaper. But today, all news is published online on web pages. As at the last quarter of 2022, there were over 1.5 billion websites all over the world, and all looking for one thing: your attention. They want to be found by you and provide you with a solution to any problem you might have. According to Wix, there are 10 common types of websites, all with the aim of selling you a product or an ad space. Some are set up to collect donations from you, or simply to generate leads, while others want you to subscribe to a membership site. There is virtually no limit to what you can do online these days, from working online to working out online. But how do you ensure that your website is seen by the right audience? This is why we have search engines, so that today, when people have questions, they go to websites like Google, the #1 search engine and the most visited website in the world. The next most visited website is YouTube, followed by Facebook, and then Twitter. When you type a query on a search engine, the search engine algorithm uses keywords to look for clues to give you the results you are looking for. Typical search answers come not on one page, but on millions of web pages. If you are thinking about making your web page rank among the top listed answers, then you need to know how SEO really works. On the show today, I have the pleasure of presenting Mark Preston. Mark is an SEO speaker, trainer, and advisor. He's the author of the book, The Business Side of SEO. Mark, how can I ensure that my web page moves from obscurity to visibility? And how can I ensure that my website appears on page 1 on search engines?
Hi, there's a few things to think about. One, you 100% need to think about your brand, right? What does your brand stand for? Okay. Then number 2, you need to fully understand your audience. So who are these people that you're trying to attract, right? Those are the foundations of everything. If you don't align those two, then everything else falls apart. So it's very important when you are looking at things to understand what's already out there. So the first thing to do is go to Google and search your name or brand name. See what comes up, troll through everything, because it might be you sharing your brand name with another company who has that brand name in a different industry. You've first got to understand what's out there and how Google are thinking about anyone typing your brand. or products and services that you provide. Google is the first point of contact where you need to do all your research. Because if you do not understand what's already out there and understand what both your customers and your audience and Google think about your brand, then there's no point moving forward. So realistically, the first point of contact is to do that research so you totally understand. You have a good base, because it might be that you're in a space that's competing against something else. I'll give you an example. Viola is an instrument and a flower. So if somebody searches for viola, well, Google doesn't really know if they're looking for that instrument or a flower, right? Yes. So they have to look upon things of what entities been most clicked on and things like that. So it's things like that, because it might be you're targeting things that really is aimed at other people and other brands. So that's the ultimate starting point, as a basic understanding of what's going on out there.
So what you're saying there is you have to look at Google first, and based on the research that you get back from Google, you then have to design your client avatar. So you need to have in mind who your ideal client is, and you need to design that client avatar and make it very detailed. You can't be talking to the world and its dog. You have to talk to a very specific niche group. So you have to really customize who that person is, what type of car they drive, where they live, what's their income, how big is their family, what luxuries do they invest in, where they go on holidays, all that type of thing. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah, it's not about taking over the world. Obviously, unless you are a major corporate brand and that's your goal. But ultimately, it's not about trying to get in front of as many people as possible. It's about getting in front of the right people.
Very good.
Right? And that's what's important. So it's not necessarily, SEO is not about driving as many people to your website as possible. It's about driving the right people that basically you have a product or service that can solve their problems. So understanding what their problems are is so beneficial. How do you do that? Simply ask them. There's tools online that you can go in and research what people search and use Google themselves. But ultimately, just ask your existing customer base, what were the reason you come to me? What was the reasons that we solved? What were the problems we solved? Now, all these things, you'll start to map out the content that you need on your website, because then until you do that, you don't really understand what that connection is between both.
Yeah. What you're saying there effectively, Mark, is that you have to ask your customers what problem they have. And when they give you a response, you need to identify a very clear solution. And if you've got the skill and competency to deliver that solution, that's the next question you've got to ask yourself. And if you have, you're onto a winner. Then you can design programs or products or services around the needs of your specific client. That's a good point. Yeah. And
it's all about, first of all, you need to look at the content on your website.
Yeah.
Just to give you a very, very basic overview, Google is interested in sending people to the right websites that's going to connect with them on both a human and emotional level, right?
Mm-hmm.
They trying over the years to tweak things to make sure that websites are not just built to get ranked in Google. Websites and content is written to solve a purpose.
Yep.
And that's what's important. So when it comes to SEO, it's not about what do I need to do to make Google happy. It's what do I need to do to drive more business. And in order to drive more business, you have to connect with your specific audience on that one-to-one level.
Just take it back a step or two here for a second, Mark. So in terms of the audience, a good question would be, what tools can I use to reach my potential clients and ask them what problem they have? What online tools can you use in that respect?
Right. First of all, you can go to Google, type in your top level service. And if you scroll down the page at the bottom, there'll be related keywords, right? And then you can put them related keywords into Google and keep going on and on until you build up a list of related keywords. Now, that's a good starting point because Google show them based on how big the exposure is based on them. You can use tools like SparkToro, which is an audience research. It doesn't tell you how many people search a certain keyword. It allows you to understand an audience. So what are the likes? What are the dislikes? What blogs do they read? What people do they search? And what people do they follow online and all that?
Mm-hmm.
You can use tools like Ahrefs, which basically has a free version that you can go on and type in a keyword and it will give you a list of related phrases. You can use Answer the Public to basically look for a massive list of questions that get asked related to your service or product. Those are just the starting point. There's a lot more, but even with just those, you'll create a massive list of questions. You'll create a massive list of things that people search. You'll create a massive list of who your audience is, what do they actually like and interested in. And collectively, it's about looking at all them information and picking out the things that relate to your individual business.
Very good. Understand that there very much so. So in terms of designing and building a website, what you're saying effectively is there's no point designing a lovely website with beautiful photographs if all you're doing is keyword stuffing. That won't help you in terms of Google rankings. It probably do a lot of damage, I would presume. What you're really saying there is if you want to attract potential prospects to your website and get them to contact you or to take an action, you have to really, not alone must the photographs on your website be very good, but you need to have set out why you're a worthy person for your prospects to contact you and what problem you can solve for them. But you also presumably need testimonials, to give your website and your services credibility. What are your thoughts in that area?
Yes, I've been in the SEO space since 2001. And the way I think about SEO is a little bit different than other people.
Very good.
Because I haven't actually thought about SEO as the primary objective. I've always looked at the business as the primary objective. I've always looked at being realistic as well. So getting a business to understand the realization of who they are and what they can provide. and understanding where they fit within their industry. So are they a corner shop or a supermarket within their industry? Are they trying to do a franchise model? Whatever the business structure is, it's being true to themselves, right? And then looking at your website and listing down initially, well, what problems can I solve? Right? With the products or services, what problems do I solve? And it's literally mapping your website out, relating to the different segments and the different audiences that you can provide. And the content on those pages needs to relate to the audience. It needs to have the information on it required. But the easiest way to think about the content on your website and get away from the keyword stuffing is, what if somebody lands on this page, what do they need to know in order to make a positive decision? Right?
Yeah.
Then it's about the call to actions. What do you want them to do next? Which page do you need to link to? And if you get that mindset right, then your audience is going to love that page. You'll generate more leads or sales, and ultimately Google's going to love it because it knows you're totally in line with what your audience wants.
So what you're saying there is, if you're a health food provider, for example, you can design a website around the fact that your product helps people to live a more healthy lifestyle. It helps them to reduce their cholesterol, helps them to reduce blood pressure, for example, that they can live a more energetic, sporty lifestyle. They don't have to worry about taking a cholesterol tablet, for example. They're all issues content you can put into your website if you're into health food provision. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. And then you have to, when the people go to your website, then you have to make it easy for them to take the next step, whether it's to sign up to an email subscription list or to buy a health food product, in the online store, for example. I know what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about understanding what they want, which sometimes isn't obvious.
Yeah.
Because, like you've just mentioned there, if you sell health products, they don't actually want a health product. They actually want to lead a healthy life. Yeah? So if all you talk about on that page is the specs of a health product, that's not what they want. That is the thing that will enable them to get them to where they want to be, which is have a healthy life. Yeah. So on your website, on that page, writing content related to, well, we understand why you want this product, because we've spoken to many people just like you who want to live a healthy life. Now, that's the difference. If you wrote that, it connects with you on that emotional level. But if you go to the page and say, right, this health product has E796 numbers, it has this and that, it's not connecting with you as much.
Of course.
You see?
Yeah, what you're saying there effectively is, Mark, that don't talk about the features of your product. Talk about the benefits.
Yeah. Benefits first, then you can add the features on the page because some people want to see what's in the product, but as a secondary.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there, but the benefits have to come first because you're trying to connect on an emotional level with your prospect or your client. You're not trying to connect with them in a logical way. It has to be through the emotional level. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Anything else you can do? What about, say, consultants, for example? more so than products or services, where you're offering a consultancy service. How can those people stand out from their competition in terms of designing their website and SEO?
Yeah. When it comes to consultants, you have two different things. You have the service side and you have the personal brand side. Right?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that your personal brand is saying the same thing. So wherever you mentioned online, it's saying the same thing. So you are a specialist. And this is where the trust aspect comes into it. Because it's all right me sitting here saying, yes, I can do X, Y, Z. Well, on what basis? Yeah. As a consultant, you need to provide things. You need to provide testimonials, reviews. You need to provide videos. You need to prove that you are the specialist, the consultant. It's no good just saying that, yes, I am okay. The best way is if other people are saying good things about you.
Very good. And in terms of testimonials, Mark, are video testimonials a far more effective way of, social proof than a written testimonial, for example?
Well, testimonials over the years, the trust in testimonials and reviews has changed. Going back years, you could just copy and paste them on your website and everyone would just, yes, that's okay. But because certain companies and businesses was writing them themselves and manipulating it, video testimonials, well, it's real. It is that person.
Yeah.
And what I've found is the less professional those testimonial videos look, the better they're trusted. You'll go to some websites where the video testimonials, there's a production company and they're doing all this fancy thing, but it just looks and feels too set up and artificial.
Yeah.
But if you just ask someone, say, just, on your phone, it doesn't matter, can you just say a few words and, that connects more, it looks more authentic.
That's a very interesting point. No, I didn't know that, Mark. So thanks for sharing that information today, to be honest, because what you're saying there is, if it appears too perfect, the video testimonial, that is, there's a lack of authenticity. It doesn't look very authentic, I should say. Whereas if it looks, being recorded on a phone, for example, it looks from the heart. And that's what's going to connect with the audience.
Yeah, I think it's more the production of the testimonial, rather than if it's recorded on a phone or a camera, or even if you have lights. It's more the authenticity of it. Yeah. You see, that relates. I've got a testimonial where, it's just the guy on his phone with a brick wall at the back.
Yeah.
But the emotion comes out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important. People just want real nowadays.
Of course.
Especially with the pandemic, it's not as frowned upon to not be 100% professional. It's okay to jump on a call working from your home office. It's more, people just want real now. And all they're interested in, well, can you solve my problem? Well, here's some videos of people talking about how we solve their problem.
Good point. Well done. Moving on from there, how important is it to have a call to action on each of your web pages?
I'd say it's essential. if you do not tell people what you want them to do next, most of them will do nothing and click off the page. If you have two options, right? So you have your main call to action and another call to action on people who's yet undecided is beneficial. But unless you have call to actions on the web pages, you're not really going to drive the potential you could do, because they don't know what to do next. You think of your website and anything online, whether it's social media or anything, as a sales funnel. So your job as the business owner or a marketing team or whoever it is to get people from one page to another to do a certain action, right? And there's no point sending them up the sales funnel. You want to be sending them down the sales funnel. So if you bring them in an article up here, and in order to get to the contact form, you need another piece of information here. Well, you need to link from there to there to there.
That's a good point there, Mark. That what you're saying is, if you've got a person to go from a LinkedIn article to your website, for example, if you want them to contact you via a Calendly link in your website, you have to have an intermediary step to get them there. That's what you're saying, effectively.
Yeah, it's really thinking about what does this person need to know in order to want to contact you or set an appointment up.
Yeah.
Whether you can do that in one step or whether it takes 3 steps, it doesn't matter, as long as you provide that person with enough information to want to contact you
and to take those steps. Yeah. And then the steps have to be easily taken. You don't want to, cause your prospect to go to another competitor because, the way you have set out your call to action doesn't appeal to your prospect. In other words, they lose interest and they move off somewhere else. Yeah.
That's it. If they lose interest, it means that you haven't connected with them.
Yeah.
And this is why the content's so important on the website.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, say, Google Adwords and other, paid for campaigns in trying to drive traffic to a website?
When you're talking about paid advertising online, you have to fully understand both the audience and the competition. Now, if you are in a space where you're competing against brands, well-known brands with big budgets, the chances are they have got their advertising spend to say, well, whatever someone else bids, just bid higher. Because when it comes to AdWords, it's an auction. Business owners have to understand it's an auction. And depending on how much exposure you receive, really depends on how much per each individual visitor you're willing to pay to get them. Now, if you go to Google and type in your main service in the area you want to target, look at the results at the top. You'll be able to tell that they are paid ads because it's got a little ad symbol next to them. Now look at who they are. If they are big, well-known brands, the chances are they've got an unlimited budget. If they are just businesses on your level, well, it's realistic to gain some exposure there. Now, I always say using SEO and paid collectively, if you have the budget to do so, is the perfect mix. It's not a case of you either do one or the other, because it's the same audience you want to attract in. You're just using different methods to attract them.
I know what you're saying there. So if you're going to be competing against multinational organizations to, spend money on Google Ads, you need to think very twice, because you're going to be very easily outbid by those organizations. And what you could be ending up doing is spending a lot of money and achieving nothing for it, because the competition have an unlimited budget that the small person doesn't have. But also, if you're going to compete against similar size organizations in terms of spending money on Google AdWords, you have to do that in conjunction with your SEO strategy. Don't do it on its own. That's just going to
if you are considering using like Google AdWords, the biggest important thing to understand is a thing called negative keywords. So when you're setting your Google account up, there will be a section in there saying, well, what don't you want us to show your ads for? So say, for instance, you are a high profile business consultant.
Very good.
Right? So you'll use the word affordable and cheap as a negative keyword, because you want to attract the big people with the big budgets.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand what you don't want to be shown for, as it's important to understand what you do want to be shown for. And that's the important thing. Now, it might take a month or 2 months to run an AdWords campaign, and you might waste some money targeting the wrong people. But the beauty with AdWords, it gives you a list of exactly what they've searched in order to click through to you. And you can look at that list and think, oh, well, I don't want to target that. I'll add it into my negative keyword list.
It's a very good point, because what you're saying there is, if you're a high profile consultant and you want to attract clients that can afford to pay your fee, the last thing you want is people landing on your website who are looking for a minimalist fee, because that's only, Google AdWords money spent and it's gone to the wrong prospect effectively.
That is, over the past 20 odd years, that has been the one thing I've seen time and time again. Even down to what geographical area do you want to target? Because if you want to drive people into your business, so they have to physically walk through the front door, well, you have to think about, well, how far are they realistically willing to travel? Mm-hmm. So I only want to target that certain geographical area. There's a lot to, but ultimately, it's not rocket science. It's just understanding who the audience are. It's understanding the positive and the negative. Who do you want to target? Who don't you? Yeah. Do you want to dismiss words like cheap, free, affordable, and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. Good point. I know what you're saying there. That's pretty logical, I think, to be quite honest. Just come back to testimonials there and video testimonials. How important is it to, regularly update video testimonials on websites to keep them looking fresh?
Right. There's a lot of information online that says you need to be constantly updating things. My take on this and experience is updates your website and testimonials when you've got one. Right?
Yeah.
Don't try and force content on your website if there's no need, because each testimonial and page and piece of content on your website has a purpose. And like for me, I use testimonials, but there's no set structure where I'll say, well, I need 5 every month. I just add them as they come in. So you won't get penalised if you add less one month than the month before.
Good point. Yeah. So what you're saying there, Mark, is don't go out there seeking video testimonials from people. Let people give them to you if they decide. And if you do get a video testimonial and it connects with your audience, they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in asking people if they, existing customers, if they'd mind giving you a video testimonial. I mean, there's even tools now that you can just give them a link and it's all set up and they'll click the link, go on, and it records them. I mean, there's lots of different ways to gain video testimonials. There's no harm in asking people for them, but I wouldn't force the issue.
Yeah. I know what you're saying there. If people don't want to give a video testimonial because they prefer to keep their consultancy service with you private, that's perfectly okay. You can't force that person to say, give me a testimonial, because you lose them.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of big companies over the years, and a lot of companies don't want anybody to know they work with me. And that's fine. There's NDAs in place, there's different things. It's fine. It's just understanding the boundaries. And if you know that you're not going to get them, well, that's fine.
Of course. Yeah. You can always ask. And if they don't say yes, well, that's fine. You just have to accept it. Yeah. I know what you're saying there. Yeah. This has been a really amazing conversation today, Mark, I must say. And there's been other theory discussed, and I think some of it has been quite heavyweight. So I'm going to summarize the main takeaways for the audience. So the first thing a person needs to do in terms of their SEO strategy is to check their brand on Google to see if there is a similar brand to what you're offering out there. Because if there is, you have to think about differentiating your brand to make sure you're getting the right prospects to go to your website. Secondly, use Google tools and packages like Ahrefs to identify who your ideal client is, what questions they're asking, what problems they have, and to understand them more as people. Who are they looking to answer for issues in their lives or to buy services or products from? You then need to design a client avatar. And after that, you need to ensure that the content on your website is explaining the benefits of your product or service. The features come second, and only put in unique features if they help to substantiate the benefits you're offering your clients. Also, in terms of testimonials, video testimonials are worth their weight in gold, but don't make them so perfect that they have been produced in a studio, for example. The most important point is connection with your audience, and make sure that the video testimonial clearly outlines the problem you've solved for your client. Also, in terms of video testimonials, it's okay to ask clients for video testimonials, but as you said today, Mark, don't force the issue, because some clients might prefer to keep their consultancy service with you private, and that's perfectly okay. Also, in terms of Google AdWords campaigns, do it in conjunction with your SEO campaign and strategy. Don't try to do them separately. But as you said there earlier on today, Mark, if you're competing against multinational companies for Google AdWords, think very carefully before going down that route, because multinational or big organizations will have a sizable budget for these AdWords campaigns, and it's very hard to compete against that. So I think overall, this has been a very exciting conversation today. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before I let you go?
Yes. Ultimately, think about your brand. Who do you want to be? That's more important than anything. Don't think about trying to compete with anyone else. Think about who you want to be as your own brand, right? Get that right. And just because somebody else is doing something doesn't mean you should just follow them with the brand. But it's been fantastic talking to you. And this subject could go on for weeks. Literally, there's so many things, but what we've discussed today is getting people to understand and think in the right way about their individual brand and their audience and the purpose. And once your customers love you, and once your customers are saying positive things about you in the wider internet scope online, then Google's going to love you and your brand.
Very good point, Mark. So what you're saying there effectively is that put your own story, if you're particularly a consultancy person who's offering services that are more around the career coaching, life coaching type of services, put your own story in there. Don't necessarily follow what other people are doing on their websites. Put your own story in there. And that makes you much more, individualistic. It separates you from the audience, from the competition, I should say. And also it helps to establish your credibility as a consultant offering services to people like life coaching or career coaching. And then finally, as you said there earlier on today, Mark, think about negative keywords in your SEO and AdWords campaigns, because you want to ensure you drive the right audience to your website. Because if you're, as you said earlier on, if you're thinking about, I want high profile customers who will pay a good fee, the last thing you want is people who are looking for, small fees or minimalist fees or free services to be arriving on your website. So you need to think very carefully about the positive keywords and the negative keywords in your AdWords campaigns. So from an audience perspective, we'd love to hear about your experience of using SEO strategies. So please put your experience in the comments section below. On that note, I shall bring today's conversation to a close. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.